You know what they say about assuming. It makes an ass out of you and me. But in this case, it just made an ass out of my wife Elena and her coworker Diego. I was sitting in my home office, door slightly ajar, working on quarterly reports, when I heard Diego's voice drift up from the kitchen. Elena had invited him over for coffee after their shift at the hospital. Nothing unusual there. They worked together in the pediatric wing, and Elena often brought colleagues home. I'd met Diego a few times. Charming guy, early 30s, one of those naturally confident types who made conversation flow like wine. What was unusual was hearing him speak in rapid Spanish. Elena, no puedo seguir fingiendo que solo somos amigos. His voice carried that tremor of nervous excitement. I couldn't keep pretending we're just friends. I set down my pen. My Spanish was rusty, sure, but 8 years of classes and 2 summers in Barcelona during college hadn't completely evaporated from my brain. Elena didn't know about my Spanish background. Why would she? We'd been together 5 years, married for 3, and it had never come up. She spoke perfect English. I spoke perfect English. And we lived in Denver, where Spanish was helpful, but not essential for our daily lives. Diego, tú sabes que estoy casada. Elena's voice was softer now, almost whispered. You know I'm married. Sí, pero él no te entiende como yo. No te ve como yo te veo. Diego's words hit my chest like a sledgehammer. Yes, but he doesn't understand you like I do. He doesn't see you like I see you. I stood up slowly, my chair rolling backward on its wheels. Through the crack in my door, I could see them in the kitchen. Diego had moved closer to Elena, his hand touching her arm. She wasn't pulling away. Mi amor por ti es diferente, he continued, his voice gaining confidence. Cada día que trabajo contigo, cada sonrisa que me das, cada vez que hablas de él, sé que podría ser más feliz. My love for you is different. Every day I work with you, every smile you give me, every time you talk about him, I know you could be happier. Elena was quiet for a long moment. I could see her profile, the way she was looking down at the counter, then up at Diego. This was the moment. This was where my wife of 3 years, the woman I'd built a life with, the woman I'd trusted completely, would either shut this down or... Sí, she whispered. Yes, 1 word, 3 letters. A complete betrayal wrapped in a foreign language they thought I couldn't understand. Sí? Diego's voice cracked with disbelief and joy. Sí, Diego. Tienes razón. Liam es. Él es seguro. Predecible. Pero contigo siento algo diferente. Algo más intenso. Yes, Diego. You're right. Liam is... he's safe. Predictable. But with you, I feel something different. Something more intense. Safe. Predictable? The words echoed in my head as I watched Diego cup her face in his hands. She leaned into his touch like a cat seeking warmth. Entonces, ¿qué hacemos? Diego asked. So what do we do? Necesitamos ser cuidadosos. No puede enterarse todavía. Necesito tiempo para pensar en cómo terminar las cosas con él. We need to be careful. He can't find out yet. I need time to think about how to end things with him. I'd heard enough. Actually, I'd heard too much. But instead of storming down there like some cliched wronged husband, I took a deep breath and walked calmly down the stairs. They sprang apart when they heard my footsteps, but not fast enough. Diego was still standing too close. Elena's cheeks were flushed, and the guilt was written all over both their faces. Hey, babe, Elena said, her voice artificially bright. We were just discussing the new protocols for the children's ward. En español? I asked quietly. The color drained from both their faces simultaneously. I said, were you discussing children's ward protocols in Spanish? I continued in English, keeping my tone conversational, almost friendly. Because I couldn't help but overhear, and it sounded like you were discussing something entirely different. Diego cleared his throat, attempting recovery. Liam, I don't think you understood. Entendí perfectamente, I interrupted, switching to Spanish. I understood perfectly. Entendí que le dijiste a mi esposa que la amas. Entendí que ella dijo que sí. Y entendí que están planeando cómo terminar su matrimonio conmigo. I understood that you told my wife you love her. I understood that she said yes. And I understood that you're planning how to end her marriage with me. Elena's coffee mug slipped from her fingers and shattered against the kitchen floor, sending ceramic pieces and hot coffee across the tiles. Diego took a step backward, his face pale as morning fog. Liam, Elena started. No, I said, raising my hand. Don't. Don't you dare try to explain this away or tell me I misunderstood. I heard every word, every single word. The silence stretched between us like a taut wire ready to snap. Diego kept looking between Elena and me, probably calculating his exit strategy. Elena stared at the broken mug at her feet, her hands shaking. How long have you known Spanish? She finally asked, her voice barely audible. 8 years of classes in high school and college, 2 summers in Barcelona. But that's not the question you should be asking, Elena. I leaned against the doorframe, amazed at how calm my voice sounded when my heart was hammering against my ribs. The question you should be asking is, now that you know I understand every Spanish conversation you've ever had in front of me, how many other secrets do you think I've discovered? Diego made a move toward the door. I think I should... No, Diego. Stay. My voice carried enough authority to stop him mid-step. We're going to finish this conversation. All of it. In whatever language makes you most comfortable. Elena looked up at me then, and I saw something I'd never seen in her eyes before. Fear. Not the fear of losing me. She'd already made that choice clear. This was the fear of being caught. Of having your carefully laid plans crumble before they could be executed. Liam, please let me explain. Oh, you'll explain, I said, still maintaining that eerily calm tone. You'll both explain everything. But first I have a question for you, Diego. He straightened up, trying to recover some dignity. What? When you told my wife that I don't understand her like you do, that I don't see her like you see her, what exactly did you mean? I switched back to Spanish. ¿Qué es lo que ves en ella que yo no veo? Diego's jaw worked soundlessly for a moment. Elena shot him a warning look, but I caught it. Because, I continued, I'm starting to think there's a lot more to this story than a simple workplace romance. Diego's face went through several shades of pale before he managed to speak. I see a woman who deserves passion, not routine. Passion. I repeated the word like I was testing its flavor. Interesting choice. Elena, would you say our marriage lacks passion? She was still staring at the broken coffee mug, but I could see her mind racing. Liam, this isn't how I wanted. Answer the question. Yes, she whispered. Yes, it does. For how long? What? How long has our marriage been passionless? Days? Weeks? Months? I crossed my arms, maintaining my unnaturally calm demeanor. Because I'm trying to understand the timeline here. Elena finally looked up at me. About a year. A year. I nodded slowly. Right around the time Diego started working in pediatrics with you. Diego shifted uncomfortably. Liam, you're making this sound like an affair that's been building for a year? Because that's exactly what this sounds like. I walked over to the kitchen counter, carefully stepping around the broken ceramic. Elena, do you remember our anniversary dinner last month? At Romano's? Her confusion was genuine. Of course. You excused yourself to take a call, said it was about a patient emergency. You were gone for 15 minutes. You spoke in Spanish the entire time. I opened the kitchen drawer and pulled out my phone. I followed you outside and recorded some of it. Want me to play it back? The blood drained from her face so quickly I thought she might faint. Diego's hand moved instinctively toward the door again. Liam, please. I pressed play. Elena's voice, clear as crystal. No, Diego, no podemos vernos esta noche. Es nuestro aniversario. Tengo que fingir que soy feliz. No, Diego, we can't see each other tonight. It's our anniversary. I have to pretend I'm happy. Elena sank into one of the kitchen chairs. Diego just stood there, trapped. I've been keeping track, I continued, scrolling through my phone. 3 months of recorded conversations, 67 text messages in Spanish that you thought I couldn't read, and some very interesting financial records. Financial records? Elena's voice cracked. The hotel charges, Elena. The Marriott downtown. Every Tuesday for the past 2 months. Room 412. Always paid for with your credit card. Always for 2 hours. I set my phone on the counter. Did you really think I wouldn't notice the charges on our joint account? Diego finally found his voice. We never what? Never had sex? Because the hotel records tell a different story. Housekeeping logs show towels and sheets changed, champagne ordered from room service. Champagne, Diego, Elena's favorite brand. Dom Perignon. Elena buried her face in her hands. Stop. Please just stop. Oh, I'm just getting started. I pulled out a manila folder from the cabinet. I'd prepared for this moment, because the hotel visits were just the beginning. Elena, want to tell Diego about the apartment? Her head snapped up. What apartment? The one you've been looking at on Riverside Drive. The 1-bedroom with the balcony overlooking the park. The lease application you filled out last week. I opened the folder and showed them the printouts. The one where you listed Diego Vasquez as your co-applicant. Diego's mouth fell open. Elena, you never told me about... Because I wanted it to be a surprise, she said frantically. After I left Liam, I wanted us to have somewhere to live together, I finished. Yeah, I figured that out when I saw Diego's signature on the employment verification form. Turns out you both applied for the lease 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks, Elena. This isn't some sudden passion. This is a calculated plan. I walked over to the kitchen window, looking out at the garden Elena and I had planted together 2 springs ago. The roses were blooming now, the same deep red ones she'd insisted on because they reminded her of her grandmother's garden in Mexico. You want to know what really hurt? I turned back to them. It wasn't the affair. It wasn't even the lies. It was that you both thought I was too stupid to figure it out. We never thought, Diego started. You absolutely did. Every time you spoke Spanish in front of me, you were betting on my ignorance. Every hotel charge, every secret phone call, every plan you made for your new life together. You assumed I was just the clueless husband who'd never catch on. Elena wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Liam, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. For which part? The affair? The lies? Or getting caught? She couldn't answer that. I sat down across from her at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd eaten breakfast together that morning, where she'd kissed my cheek and told me she loved me, where she'd made plans to meet Diego later, speaking in English so I wouldn't suspect anything. Here's what's going to happen, I said quietly. Diego, you're going to leave my house right now. You're going to drive home, and you're going to think very carefully about whether you want to continue this relationship with my wife. Liam, I'm not finished. I looked directly at him. Because Elena hasn't told you everything, has she? Diego looked between Elena and me, confusion clear on his face. Tell him about the money, Elena. Her face went white. What money? The $78,000 you transferred from our savings account to your personal account last month. The money from my mother's life insurance policy that we agreed would go toward buying our first house. Diego stared at Elena in shock. You took money from... Tell him about the credit cards, Elena, the ones you opened in my name. Tell him about the loan you took against my 401k without my knowledge. Elena, Diego's voice was barely a whisper. What is he talking about? I needed money for us to start over. I needed us to have a future together. You stole from me, I said simply. You've been systematically draining our joint finances for months to fund your new life with Diego. Did you tell him that, Elena? Did you mention that your grand romantic escape was being financed by theft? Diego backed toward the door. Elena, I never asked you to... No, but you didn't ask questions either, did you? When she paid for the hotel rooms, when she talked about the apartment, when she bought you that Rolex you're wearing? Did you wonder where the money was coming from? Diego looked down at his wrist, then at Elena with growing horror. She told you I was emotionally unavailable, didn't she? That I didn't understand her, didn't appreciate her, but she didn't tell you that she's been planning to leave me financially destroyed. Elena stood up abruptly. That's not, I was going to pay it back. With what money? Diego's nurse salary? Your part-time pediatric pay? Elena, you stole nearly 6 figures from me. There's no paying that back. The kitchen fell silent except for the steady tick of the wall clock. Diego's hand was on the door handle now, his face a mixture of betrayal and disgust. Elena, he said slowly, is this true? All of it? She looked at him with desperate eyes. Diego, please, I can explain. Is it true? Yes, she whispered. Diego opened the door. Don't contact me again. Either of you. And then he was gone, leaving Elena and me alone with the wreckage of 3 lives and a kitchen floor covered in broken ceramic. Elena stared at the closed door for a full minute before turning back to me. Her mascara had created dark tracks down her cheeks, and her hands were shaking. Liam, please, we can fix this. We can... Sit down, Elena. She sat. I opened the manila folder again and spread documents across the kitchen table like a dealer laying out cards. Bank statements, credit reports, hotel receipts, phone records, and something else she hadn't seen yet. Do you know what forensic accounting is? Her eyes widened. Forensic? What? It's what happens when someone suspects financial fraud in a marriage. You hire specialists to trace every transaction, every transfer, every suspicious charge. I pointed to a thick report with the letterhead Morrison Financial Investigations. I hired them 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks? Her voice was barely a whisper, right after I heard your first phone call with Diego. See, I may have been predictable and safe, but I wasn't stupid. I knew something was wrong, so I started documenting everything. Elena picked up the forensic report with trembling fingers. The first page showed a summary. Total misappropriated funds, $147,832. That's more than you told Diego. Because you're still stealing from me. Yesterday, you transferred another $5,000 to your personal account. This morning, you made a payment to Sterling Properties. The deposit for that apartment. She set the report down like it was radioactive. How did you... Elena, we've shared everything for 3 years. Bank accounts, credit cards, passwords. You never changed your banking password from our anniversary date. I pulled out my laptop and opened it to her online banking portal. I've been watching every transaction in real time. The color drained from her face as she saw her account displayed on the screen. There's something else you should see. I clicked over to another tab, a video file. Security footage from the Marriott. Turns out they keep recordings for 90 days. Elena's hand flew to her mouth as she watched herself and Diego entering the hotel lobby, her head thrown back in laughter at something he'd said. The timestamp showed last Tuesday, the same day she'd told me she was working a double shift. The hotel was happy to provide the footage once I explained I was investigating potential fraud by my spouse. Amazing how cooperative people become when you mention legal proceedings. I closed the laptop and looked directly at her. Elena, you've committed multiple felonies. Identity theft for the credit cards in my name. Embezzlement from our joint accounts. Fraud for the falsified loan documents. Grand theft for anything over $25,000. You can't. I already have. I pulled out another document. This is a complaint I filed with the district attorney's office this morning. They're very interested in your case. Elena shot to her feet. Liam, please, I'll pay it back. I'll do anything. Sit down. She sat, but her whole body was vibrating with panic. There's more. I opened another folder. Remember when you took that sick day 3 weeks ago? When you said you had food poisoning? She nodded mutely. You went to see a divorce attorney, Patricia Hoffman on 17th Street. You discussed strategy for leaving me with minimal assets while maximizing your settlement. Elena's face went gray. How could you possibly? Because Patricia Hoffman is my attorney, Elena. Has been for 2 years, ever since I started my consulting business. Professional courtesy. She called me when you tried to hire her to divorce me. The kitchen was so quiet I could hear Elena's ragged breathing. Your appointment was recorded, by the way. Attorney consultations often are, for legal protection. Want to hear what you told her about me? No, she whispered. You said I was emotionally abusive, that I controlled the finances and isolated you from friends. You said you feared for your safety and wanted to claim spousal abuse to get a restraining order. Elena began to cry, not the delicate tears from earlier, but harsh, ugly sobs. You were going to destroy my reputation, my career, my entire life, based on lies, and you were going to use the legal system to do it. I stood up and walked to the kitchen sink, turning my back to her while she cried. The garden outside looked peaceful in the afternoon sun, completely at odds with the destruction happening inside. Here's what's really going to happen, I said without turning around. You're going to pack a bag, one bag, and you're going to leave this house tonight. Where am I supposed to go? I don't care. But you're not staying here. Liam, please. I'm not finished. I turned to face her. Tomorrow morning, you're going to call your supervisor at the hospital and resign. You're going to tell them you're relocating for personal reasons. I can't quit my job. You should have thought about that before you decided to steal from me. My voice remained calm, but there was steel underneath it now. Because if you don't resign voluntarily, I'll have to share some interesting information with hospital administration. Elena wiped her nose with her sleeve. What information? About how you've been using hospital computers to transfer funds during work hours. About how you've been falsifying your timesheets to cover for your hotel visits with Diego. About how you accessed patient records to get Diego's personal information when he first started working there. Elena, I have screenshots. The hospital's IT department was very helpful when I explained that my wife might be using their systems inappropriately. She stared at me in horror. You're destroying my entire life. No, Elena, you destroyed your own life. I'm just making sure you face the consequences. I sat back down across from her. But I'm not unreasonable. I'm going to give you a choice. Hope flickered in her eyes. What choice? Option 1. You can fight this. Hire a lawyer, try to claim I'm lying, attempt to prove your innocence. Of course, that means the criminal charges proceed, the evidence becomes public record, and everyone we know gets to see exactly what you did. What's option 2? You sign this. I slid a document across the table. It's a confession detailing everything you've done. The affair, the theft, the fraud, the planned false accusations. You sign it, and I'll consider not pressing criminal charges. Elena picked up the confession with shaking hands. Consider? That's right, consider. Because you've broken my trust so completely that I can't promise you anything except this. If you sign that document and leave quietly, you might avoid prison. She read through the confession, her face growing paler with each paragraph. This would destroy my nursing license, my career, everything. Yes, it would. And if I don't sign it, then tomorrow morning every piece of evidence I've gathered goes to the police, the hospital, your nursing board, and anyone else who needs to know what kind of person you really are. Elena set the confession down and looked at me with something approaching awe. When did you become so cold? About the time I realized my wife was a thief and a liar who was planning to destroy my life for her own convenience. She picked up the pen I'd placed beside the confession. If I sign this, will you ever forgive me? I thought about that question for a long moment. Elena, forgiveness isn't the issue here. Trust is, and you've proven that trusting you was the biggest mistake of my life. She signed the document with tears dripping onto the paper. Good, I said, taking the confession and placing it back in the folder. Now pack your bag. You have 30 minutes. Liam? 29 minutes. She stood up slowly and walked toward the stairs. At the bottom, she turned back to me. I did love you, at the beginning. I know, I said. That's what makes this so much worse. She climbed the stairs, and I listened to her footsteps crossing the floor above me. In exactly 28 minutes, the woman I'd thought I'd spend my life with would walk out that door forever. And for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. 27 minutes later, Elena came down the stairs with a single suitcase. She looked older somehow, like the weight of her choices had aged her years in mere hours. She set the bag by the front door and turned to me one last time. The house is in my name only, has been since before we got married. I didn't look up from my laptop. Check the deed if you want. I never added you to the title. Her mouth opened, then closed, another assumption that had just crumbled. My car is leased under the business account. You're not authorized to drive it anymore. How am I supposed to? Call an Uber, take the bus, walk. I honestly don't care. Elena stood there for another minute, perhaps waiting for some sign of the man she'd married, some crack in my composure that would let her back in. She didn't find it. Goodbye, Liam. I didn't respond until I heard the front door close and her footsteps fade down the driveway. Then I picked up my phone and made a call. Patricia? It's Liam. She's gone. Yes, she signed it. No, I don't think she'll be back. I hung up and opened my laptop again. There was one more piece of business to handle. 3 days later, I was back at work when my phone rang. Elena's number. Liam, please, you have to help me. Elena? I thought I made it clear. They fired me. Her voice was shrill with panic. The hospital fired me. They said I violated computer usage policies and falsified records. My nursing license is under review. I can't get another job anywhere. That's unfortunate. Liam, please. I'm staying in a motel. I can't afford to eat. Diego won't return my calls. My sister won't even talk to me. I have nothing. You have exactly what you chose, Elena. I'll pay you back every penny. I'll do anything. Please, just help me. I leaned back in my office chair, looking out at the Denver skyline. Elena, do you remember what you told Diego about me being predictable? What? Yes, but you were wrong. Predictable would have been me yelling and screaming and throwing you out that night. Predictable would have been me begging you to stay, to work things out, to go to counseling. Liam, please. But I didn't do any of those things, did I? Because you see, I learned something about myself through all this. I learned I'm not the safe, boring husband you thought you married. I never said you were boring. You said I was predictable, safe, that Diego made you feel something more intense. I stood up and walked to my office window. Well, Elena, how's this for intensity? I heard her sharp intake of breath. You want to know the truth? I've been planning this for 2 months. Every piece of evidence, every document, every strategic move. I orchestrated all of it. What are you talking about? I knew about Diego before you ever had that conversation in the kitchen. I hired a private investigator 7 weeks ago. I knew about the hotel, the money transfers, the apartment applications. I knew everything. That's impossible. Elena, I'm a financial consultant. I trace money for a living. Did you really think you could steal from me without me noticing? The silence stretched between us. The Spanish conversation that day? I let it happen. I could have confronted you weeks earlier, but I wanted to see how far you'd go. I wanted to document every lie, every theft, every betrayal. You set me up. I gave you every opportunity to come clean, every chance to be honest. You chose deception every single time. Elena was crying now, harsh sobs that I could hear through the phone. But here's the part you'll really love, Elena. Remember how surprised you were that Diego just walked away? How quickly he abandoned you when he learned about the money? What about it? Diego and I had a conversation the day after he left our house. What? Her voice was barely a whisper. He called me, apologized, said he never knew about the financial stuff, that he thought you were just unhappy in your marriage. We talked for over an hour. You talked to Diego? Nice guy, actually. Just got caught up in your web of lies like everyone else. He was horrified when he realized what you'd done. Liam, what did you... I offered him a deal. Full immunity from any legal action if he was willing to testify about your relationship. The hotel visits, the lies you told him about me, the plans you made together. Elena's breathing became rapid and shallow. He agreed, Elena. Diego is going to testify that you manipulated him, lied to him, and used him as part of your plan to defraud me. He's going to tell everyone that you painted me as abusive and controlling to justify your actions. He wouldn't. He already has. We met with my attorney yesterday. His testimony is part of the record now. I could hear Elena hyperventilating through the phone. But wait, there's more. Remember your friend Jessica from nursing school? The one you confided in about your unhappy marriage? Jessica. She called me yesterday. Apparently, she's been feeling guilty about not warning me. She wants to make a statement about all the lies you told her about me. Something about legal immunity in exchange for cooperation. This isn't real. This can't be real. Oh, it's very real. Elena, you didn't just burn bridges. You napalmed them. Everyone you thought you could count on has turned against you once they learned the truth. Why? Her voice broke completely. Why are you doing this to me? I sat back down at my desk and picked up a framed photo of Elena and me from our honeymoon. We looked so happy, so genuinely in love. It felt like looking at strangers. Because, Elena, you taught me something valuable. You taught me that sometimes the people closest to you are the ones most capable of destroying you. And you taught me that I'm much stronger than I ever knew. Liam, please. I'm not finished. You see, I could have just divorced you quietly. I could have taken the high road, split our assets, and moved on with my life. But that wouldn't have taught you anything, would it? I set the photo face down on my desk. This way, you get to experience exactly what you tried to do to me. You get to lose everything. Your job, your reputation, your relationships, your future. You get to start over with nothing, just like you planned for me. I never wanted to destroy you. Elena, you literally planned to accuse me of abuse to get a restraining order. You were going to ruin my career, my friendships, my entire life. Don't you dare try to minimize that now. The phone was quiet, except for her ragged breathing. So here's how this ends, Elena. You're going to disappear from my life completely. You're going to pay back every penny you stole. The court will make sure of that. And you're going to live with the consequences of your choices for the rest of your life. And if I don't? Then the criminal charges proceed. Prison time, permanent criminal record, complete destruction of any chance you have at rebuilding your life. I heard her sob once more before the line went dead. 6 months later, I got a letter from Elena's attorney. She'd taken a job as a waitress in Phoenix, was making payments on the restitution, and wanted to know if I would consider reducing the amount owed. I wrote back with a single word: no. Because some lessons are only learned the hard way. And sometimes, the quiet, predictable husband turns out to be the most dangerous enemy of all.